Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Adrienne. I'm a life coach. Today, I'm having a wonderful discussion with Bev, who I will allow to introduce herself.
Hi, Adrian. It's so lovely to be here with you again. Thank you for this invitation.
Pleasure.
So, I'm a relationship coach, and what I help people do is, in essence, get what they want in a relationship and give their partners what they need, and then cherish what healthy giving back and forth and getting brings to a relationship, how to cherish and nurture that.
Oh,
And
amazing.
today we're going to talk about abandonment, how that shows up for ourselves and how that impacts a relationship.
Exactly. This is one of those sort of like root issues that a lot of people are aware of. Like for myself personally, my friends and myself would be like, oh yeah, I have abandonment issues. I have abandonment issues,
Mm.
but never actually understanding, wait, how do you deal with this? How do you overcome it? How is this actually manifesting in different areas of my life? How is it affecting all of the different kinds of relationships that I have, not just romantic, but like friendships at work and all
Mhm.
these different areas. And so I sort of deep
That's a
dived into this issue
great
again
question.
within the last few months and have realized, okay, there's a lot more to this. It's definitely one of those like core core issues that sort of sits in the depth of your soul. And if it's not dealt with love and with kindness, it's going to be with you for the rest of your life. So how do you see abandonment issues sort of manifesting itself in people's lives? Or what do you think it comes from?
So, firstly, I wanted to just go back to that beautiful point you made about holding ourselves tenderly and compassionately.
Yeah.
That is where, as adults or mature, wise people,
Yeah.
yeah,
Supposedly, but okay.
yeah. No, we don't always show up as an adult. I respect that and I understand that. We sometimes show up as children who have adapted to trauma.
Yeah.
But when we do come into our adult self, like you and I are sitting here today without being triggered, it's nice to remember that just loving ourselves
Mhm.
and remembering the wonderful things that we do is really core to helping abandonment issues become integrated, because abandonment is all about feeling lost, alone. Brené Brown talks about belonging in a group, in a community where you don't feel that you belong because you haven't felt that at your core from when you were very, very young in your
Right.
family of origin.
Right. I know. And that was actually, and this is something that I'd like to highlight. The process can be quite interesting. I find it like exploring, like digging through, an archaeological site. It's like, hey, wait, where could this have come from? What were the triggers? What happened when I was a child? And it sort of leaves you to ask questions. Like I'm very blessed that I still have my parents. And so I can ask my mom, wait, what was it like when I was little? What was going on? I've definitely had the conversation with my mom. What did you feel like when you were pregnant with me? What was going on in your life when I was sort of percolating and growing and developing? And then it gives me a lot of insight into what the nature of my family was like when I was, a few months old, a year old, 2 years old. And through asking all of these questions, I was actually able to figure out where this trauma of abandonment actually came from, because I sort of had assumed it was from my parents, but it actually was from like caregivers that I had that were constantly changing every year, every few months on a regular basis until I was about 12. And that process and going on that journey, while it's something that's quite a sensitive topic, it can be really liberating to be like, okay, this isn't about me. I didn't do anything wrong. I am not broken. This isn't my fault. Like I'm not an evil, bad person that I have these issues. You're just sort of asking questions and going on this path and putting together these different puzzle pieces to say, okay, to be kind and compassionate. Like, let's just ask questions. Let's observe. Let's see what was going on when I was younger to sort of figure out, why do I feel like I don't belong? Why do I feel like, that I'm abandoned or that people that I love are going to leave my
Mm.
life? can be a really, really, really fascinating process if you allow it to be something that's healthy and enjoyable. Yeah, I'm going to use the word enjoyable. It can be, definitely can be.
Absolutely. And I love that. Taking that opportunity to ask your parents what was going on. And you highlighted so beautifully that it sounds like you didn't necessarily have one consistent caretaker. So that you would form an attachment and then a new one, and then that person would leave and a new one would come.
Mm-hmm.
And you were too young to understand what was going on and possibly thought maybe this has got, as you say, something to do with me, something that I did. And then what we do at that stage is we adapt. Okay, I see the pattern here. I'm not going to get close to anyone because people that I get close to always leave. And then that, which is a protective mechanism from when we're very young, we take that as carry-on baggage, if you like, into our adult lives. And we stay behind a wall in our intimate relationships, friendships, communities. We're just checking out. We're not full players. We just put our toe in and we step up because you are going to leave. It happens. I know it. It's a fact. It always happens to me. And that's how that comes up in our later life in relationship. It's an adaptive form that was worked well to protect us. That's what we want to do when we were young, but it doesn't work well in adult relationships.
And so the research that I've been doing and how I work with people is very much focused on the individual person who's dealing with the abandonment issues and what they can do to sort of overcome it from the perspective of themselves. But as you're talking about friendships, romantic relationships within the community, how do you then relate to those other people when you're dealing with these issues? How to best then deal with a romantic partner? How could they support you as you're going through this healing journey, dealing with these abandonment issues?
Right. So that's such a great question because what we need to remember that abandonment isn't about self. In other words, it's not something that just happened to me. It happened within a relationship that didn't give me what I needed at the time. And then it's playing out over and over again in various relationships. So the best gift is that just be firstly to become aware, which you and I have, and hopefully this will be of value to other people, to just suddenly become aware and then not to judge it. They left because of me. They left at the time when I was a child because that was about them.
Right.
That was their need and what they needed to do. Now, how can I show up in the adult world remaining protected and yet engaged? Because that's abandonment isn't a single person thing. We don't live in caves. We live in community in the marketplace. Abandonment cannot happen by itself. None of our wounds happen. They all happen because of inappropriate relation, and they're healed in appropriate relation. When we can become aware and we can speak into that and we can heal either with a professional or it's often kept it within our bodies, a sense of where do you feel that in your body work.
Right.
You can heal yourself and then you'll show up differently in your relationships.
I think that's the key part. The showing up differently. Like you really sort of hit the nail on the head with that one. Because once you sort of work on not abandoning yourself, because as you said, like these responses were developed when we were very young, these default settings to protect ourselves. But through that process, essentially, we're abandoning ourselves in adulthood because we mold ourselves to fit into what other people want because we want them to stay. We don't want to be abandoned as adults. So we sort of modify ourselves to fit in a certain way or to please other people or to become codependent because we don't want to relive that pain. Either we sort of stand back and we hide because again, we're trying, living behind this wall. But in both scenarios, we're abandoning who we are and who we've come into, that we're not allowing ourselves to have these romantic relationships or to remain in healthy friendships because we're sort of always have like one foot out the door. And then we're just abandoning who we are every day and reinforcing that. But once we say, okay, I'm not going to abandon myself and my needs and my desires, and I'm going to show up as myself, you're right. We're going to present ourselves to these relationships uh, differently. Do you have any tips for like what that partner can do again as they're like living with or being in a relationship with someone who is like very much traumatized from their childhood and all this stuff?
Right. So I just before I answer that, I just wanted to go back to something you said about
Okay.
abandoning ourselves,
Yeah.
which is sometimes is a part of us that we think is ugly and we
Oh,
don't
yeah.
want to integrate it. And that's abandoned. That's when we feel there's a part of us that we're abandoning. And just like we feel other people abandon us, we do the same thing because that's very familiar to us.
Yeah. It's what we know.
And
This
exactly. And
is
then
what we know. I'm
how
just doing
can
what I know.
exactly. And so how can we heal in proper relation? So I love the work of Terry Real, which describes so beautifully how you can, when you're aware that this is your need, I need to feel secure in this relationship or that you're not going to leave. Because sometimes what we do is we'll get into doing losing strategies, we'll push people away to
Yeah.
prove our point.
Yeah.
But if we look at it the reverse and we become courageous and vulnerable and say, this is where I'm triggered and sensitive. What I'd like from you is, and the key is, and how can I support you in giving me that? So if I were to give you an example, if I'm always triggered, if my husband says to me he'll be home at 7 and he comes home at 8, let's just say, and that triggers me that he's leaving me again, to say, how can I help you when you get so engrossed in your work? Shall I send you a text? Shall I phone to help you tell me, oh golly, I didn't realize the time, or yes, I am going to be an hour late. And then the last piece. So it's to ask, to tell,
Yeah.
to ask for what you want, to offer your support.
Yeah.
Because he might not be able to give that. How can I help you give me what I need? And then to show appreciation for that. So even if you only get 5%, wow, that makes me feel so much better that you're okay with me phoning you at 7 or 7:05, whatever it
Right.
is.
Right. Oh, the appreciation, the gratitude and for again, for yourself, to others. And this works in all relationships under all circumstances. Um, because I would like before I sort of realized where this root was, I did recognize the fact that like, oh, I'm doing the same things with everyone. It doesn't matter if they're male, it doesn't matter if
Beautiful.
they're female, it doesn't matter if it's at work, if it's this. And so being aware, being honest with myself, okay, wait, let's clue in here, saying something is going on and I need to recognize it. Then saying, okay, what do I need to deal with this? And then also saying to myself, okay, great. You know, I'm so grateful that I've actually made this shift. So this works in relationships when you're dealing with a partner, and the same process also works as you're getting through this on your own, being honest and being
Absolutely.
vulnerable
And
with yourself.
right. And to really, I so encourage people to really say and notice the good things that they do for themselves. Like, wow, that was such a nice cup of coffee you made for yourself. Even
Yeah.
though it sounds, I know sometimes in a gym class, I might say, wow, well done, leg, that you got up there. And I would never really admit this to anyone else.
Yes.
But it just sometimes that is when I feel I'm holding myself kindly and with compassion
Yeah.
in the face of something that's challenging me.
Yeah.
It's okay to take a moment, come back to my breath, and be appreciative of what I have done. Because
Yeah.
it's so easy just to knock yourself on the head all the time.
I know, but it's so much more enjoyable to do it this way. I think we're programmed.
Absolutely.
We're literally just programmed not to like ourselves for whatever reason. But it's just such a beautiful experience to love yourself.
I
It's
love
just, it's
that.
like a huge weight lifts off your shoulder. Like, oh, I don't need the pressure of having to please everybody else. Like, oh, there's only one of me. Instead of me trying to please 1,000, I just have to please one. It's so much easier. They're responsible for
Exactly.
their life. They're responsible for their issues. I just have to be responsible for my own. It's such a wonderful, releasing, uplifting kind of a realization, and dealing with such a core issue like abandonment, for you to make that switch from feeling as though you're not good enough and you're going to be left, fully and completely to, wait, I can show up for myself. Uh, it changes
Beautiful.
everything. It changes
It,
every aspect of your life, and very
it's
quickly.
beautiful. Yeah, and it's so beautiful because so often we spend so much time looking at the other outside, being
Yeah.
distracted. And if we just pause and come back to ourselves and show appreciation for things that we have just done the minute before, what's around us,
Right.
we can connect with ourselves, we'll show up differently. So I
Yeah.
love that it's, we do sometimes forget. We forget it in relationships too. It's so much nicer being loving and kind than it is fighting, right? And
Yeah.
there are ways to stop that and to change that, and change the rules and be in a more loving relationship. It's
Right.
possible.
And you had said about it being, you used the word distraction, um, which I think is also ties into the awareness, because sort of like aware of these behaviors that you're doing, pushing people away. So, and again, I talk from experience, to be aware of, am I doing this as a distraction?
Hmm.
Am I avoiding something? But now we're used to showing ourselves kindness and compassion. So it's easy to sort of, okay, let's bring it back. Why am I trying to avoid this? What am I distracting myself from? What feelings am I actually feeling in this moment that I'm trying to avoid? Because I think sometimes we use certain behaviors, or to argue or to fight, to use them as a distraction from what's actually going on. And that might be that we're feeling triggered, or that we're
And
worried that
I love
somebody's
what
going
you
to abandon
said.
us.
Absolutely. That we can question, what is our contribution in this relationship? There's always a contribution, because it's not you to blame and I'm all good. You're bad, I'm good. There's always the two of us that are in this dance together, and we both contribute to either making it good or not. And sometimes in relationships, we think we can just be passive. I don't need to do anything. He loves me. So sweet. And in the
Surprise.
mind read, not.
Yeah, no, you have to do something. Like you've got to sort
Exactly. We
of,
need to take a more active role in our relationships to get what we want to get, and then ask the question, and what is it that you need that I can try and give? And and to say to your partner, tell me how I can support you. What does support look like for you? Because we come from different families, right? Everybody, every relationship, right? Our families looked at, when we were sick days, looked at it differently to a different family, right? So we
right,
need to be curious. That word you used in the beginning, let's be curious.
and figure out what we need from this.
Exactly.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay. I think we really sort of captured a
I
good
think so.
amount of information on this topic, which is a topic that I could talk about for years and years and years to come, which I hope to do, because I think it's so fascinating. I think by dealing with this issue, you can sort of really heal and shift and change and uplift so many different aspects of your life and your well-being and your trajectory and where you can go and what you can do in the world. And I really think we did a really good job of sort of covering those points. So I just encourage anybody who's watching, if you've got any questions or comments or concerns about anything that we've discussed, if you want to learn more about this topic or learn more about the work that either myself or Bev does, please feel free to reach out, to leave comments, to let us know what you think. We'd be happy to hear your thoughts on this.
And answer questions.
Yes, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have on this as well. Okay, so
Thank you, Adrian. This was lovely.
You're very, very welcome. I had a lovely time chatting with you, and I look forward to next time. Take care, everybody.